So I think it's about to live stream. Actually, let me put it in community now. Not board docs anymore. Once I think it's about to live stream. Actually, let me that's me. Copy. And we're good to go.
Okay, we're live?
Yes, we are live.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Francoise Darastel Ledger, and I am Vice Chair for the Hartford Board of Education and Chair of the Teaching and Learning Committee. And today is January 28th, 2026, and our meeting is beginning. Welcome, everyone, and I would like to kind of popcorn it off to everyone who is on the call and in the meeting. So I'm going to popcorn it off. If you can say your name and your role and then pass it on to someone else. And I will pass it on to Monica Quinones. I said your name correctly.
Yes. Good evening. Monica Quinones, Executive Director of Instruction and Engagement.
And I'll just go next. Oh, sorry. Okay. Christina Santiago, Board Liaison. I will popcorn it off to Paul Casey.
Good evening, everyone. Paul Casey, Principal of Global Communications Academy. And I'll popcorn off to Dr. Sacchi.
Good evening, everyone. Al Sacchi, Assistant Superintendent for Teaching and Learning. And I'll popcorn it on to Dr. Townsell.
Dr. Townsell, Superintendent. We'll pass it on to Tracy Avicoli.
Good evening. I'm Tracy Avicoli. I'm the Director of Secondary Teaching and Learning, and I will pass it to Chris Weiss.
Hello, everyone. Chris Weiss, Executive Director of Instruction, School Improvement and Innovation. Unfortunately, I can't see the screen right now, so someone will have to pass it on to someone else at this point. Thank you.
Pass it off to Board Member Tatum. There you go.
I can jump in, sure, and welcome Mr. Weiss. My name's Stephen Tatum. My name is Stephen Tatum. I'm a board member. Over to Stephen Wilson.
Good afternoon, everyone. Stephen Wilson, and I am also a board member. And the other Stephen, Stephen, you can figure it out.
I think that's everyone.
Thank you so much, Christina and everyone. Can we please have the agenda?
Here it is. Can you see?
Thank you so much. And our first item on the agenda is the update for Global. And who will be presenting?
That would be Dr. Sacchi.
Dr. Sacchi.
Yes, and good evening, members of the board, Teaching and Learning Committee, Chair Darastel Ledger and Superintendent Townsell. Thank you for the opportunity to share some work that is occurring in the Teaching and Learning Department. Tonight, we'll be hearing on two topics. The first topic will be on Global Communications Academy and the potential shift from IB to the Cambridge model. The second presentation will be an update on our revised grading process at the high school level. And just to give a little background, the principal of Global, who's here with us, Paul Casey, and Executive Director for Global, Monica Quinones, had an opportunity to attend the Cambridge Symposium a few weeks ago to gather information about the program. Tonight, Ms. Quinones will be sharing some of what they learned, as well as give some background and context for why this shift is being proposed. And at this time, I'll invite our EDSL, Monica Quinones, to come share with us a little bit about Cambridge and why we are proposing this shift. Monica.
Thank you, Dr. Sacchi. Good evening again. So I will start off with a little bit of background about Cambridge and then also mention where the current state we're in at Global Communications Academy. So as Dr. Sacchi mentioned earlier, we had an opportunity to learn a little bit more about Cambridge International Program. It is a world-renowned program, and it's connected to the University of Cambridge, K-12 educational framework. And It's designed to really dive deeply into critical thinking, independent research skills. And unlike most rigid curriculum, the Cambridge pathway offers really a lot of flexibility in their structure, and that allows schools to tailor their learning to their local context, so maintaining their high standard of academic rigor. And they have 5 different stages. They have their early years, primary, lower secondary, upper secondary, and advanced. They emphasize a lot on skills-based rather than content-heavy. They're innovative and they really engage learners. They are qualified, very highly known by top-tier universities and employers worldwide. And they really provide students with a clear trajectory from early education to college or career success. Therefore, tonight we're discussing a really strategic pivot for Global Communications Academy. For years, we've used the IB framework to provide that rigor. And when we look at Hartford's goals for long-term student achievement, we found that we need a program that is rigorous, but not rigid. And more importantly, consistent from kindergarten through 8th grade. And this is why we're proposing a move from Cambridge to the Cambridge International Pathway. Currently, to provide a little context, our international framework is incomplete in the sense that we offer the IB for the early years primary program, but we do not have the middle years or high school diploma program, which is currently at Global. And this has created a lack of pathway for our students to start with the global framework in the elementary school, only then to lose that continuance as they move into the middle school and high school. So we're proposing a move to Cambridge specifically to also bridge that gap and then create a more complete K-12 pathway. In the primary grades, we focus a lot on very broad themes for obvious reasons. But when we move to the Cambridge primary, it will definitely switch to a more skills-based approach. And they start learning at a very young age that we start a foundation to build in the elementary grade levels, but they'd be able to carry it through for later years. Moving on to the middle school, the current framework ends in grade 5, currently here at Global. So our 6th through 8th graders don't have a path to build on. And then this lack of that framework creates this fragmented experience for our students, and they lose that momentum that they build in the elementary school. If we move on to Cambridge, we can provide that missing link to ensure that they do have a higher rigor pathway to high school. And although Global is not a high school, it can continue to a high school, and that's where Cambridge offers that flexibility. So unlike the requirements for an IB diploma, where all students have to have certain requirements, Cambridge allows students to engage in college level coursework subject by subject. And this really is a game changer in equity, because one of the key points is that it allows students, all students, students with IEP, students with 504 plans, to excel in their areas of strength and earn college credit without being penalized by having to have all the requirements to have that full requirement of the IB. Some of the very big benefits, there's 3 major ones. And one is the teacher perspective. The second is the flexibility and the financial impact that it would have. With the teacher perspective, our K teachers, as we all know, work hard enough as it is. With the IB model, it forces them to spend a lot of valuable time as curriculum designers. And as we know, not all the teachers have that background to write a curriculum, and they do that along the way. Cambridge already provides this roadmap, these ready-to-use blueprints that define the what and how to use the standards. And that way staff can then redirect their energy for students to provide the students the differentiation that they may need for their needs. This is also a critical retention tool, specifically for new teachers, to provide them sort of a toolkit so they can continue to be successful and provide high quality instruction. The flexibility part. So IB requires all 8 subject groups to be taught every year with very specific interdisciplinary units. Cambridge allows middle schools to prioritize their schedule based on the student needs. And then the financial impact. By moving to Cambridge across the K-8 spectrum, we can reduce these high annual mandatory fees associated with IB. And we're trying to buy better tools for our classroom rather than pay for fees that really don't have a direct alignment to our students. Therefore, as you can see so far, the IB program, or the IB program that's currently being used, does offer a advanced program for our global students. But moving to Cambridge, it's a lot more clear. There's a more structured roadmap that will prepare them for high school success. And ultimately, we want to see a pathway beginning at kindergarten all the way through 8th grade and continuing on to high school. So we're not simply swapping programs just to change a program. By doing this, what we're saying is that all students will have the opportunity to excel in any track that they want to, that they have their interest in. And this is the first step really into providing them a seamless K-12 through line, providing our students with an academic pipeline from their first day through high school graduation. In a nutshell. Is there any questions? Any school-specific questions? Principal Casey is
Board
here
Member
as well.
Wilson with his hand up.
Thank you. I appreciate the presentation there. I'm actually very interested in this because I've been around since Global was originally opened. It was supposed to be a K through 12 IB program that I know was, it struggled over the years with certifications and meeting the standard and the criteria for IB. So and knowing that the school is no longer K through 12, I'm glad to hear that sort of piece is being addressed, because kids that are kind of start off in that IB, there is no path. So I understand that. So just a couple questions, if you can help me out. Is there certifications that the teachers need to obtain to as a part of the requirements for this program?
No, there are no certifications, which is a huge plus. And
Okay.
one of the reasons, okay, so I'll stop there. No.
No, you're good. This isn't
say that
Congress hearings and stuff. You can talk.
Thank you, sir. Global never was able to get out of the primary years program to a middle years program and ultimately a high school because there was a lot of turnover at the middle school level with teachers, and it costs a lot of money to recertify a teacher. So right now, we're supposed to recertify next year, and one of the things that we looked at is we have 6 people that would have to recertify. So that's an additional cost of $12,000, $2,000 per. And then when Cambridge came to our attention, we were like, well, they're similar, and there's some more, again, flexibility and cost savings. I'll stop on this point. The goal of both of these programs is ultimately, with the vision of trying to keep kids in Hartford and attract kids back to Hartford. The goal for both of these programs is they earn college credits while still in high school. And then when they graduate high school, they could graduate with a Cambridge International Program degree. So that's a point of distinction they can put on their college application. So that being the goal, having a through line is really important.
And is that also something that they have to take a test for at the end in their senior year, just like with the IB?
That's correct. Yep. At the high school level. Yep.
All right. Another question, and then I have some more, but I'll just ask one more, and I see some other hands that may be up. I'm not sure if it's just me. Right now, Global is K through 6, 7?
K through 8.
Right? K through 8, sorry. What, and this may be more for administration, what high school do we have for these kids to now flow into if this program is adopted, so that they can continue on that path?
So Ms. Quinones, you want to address? You want me to address?
Yes. So right now, currently, the way most of the students from Global go to Weaver.
Yep.
That's where most of our kids are going.
Right, but I mean, Weaver doesn't necessarily fulfill that IB, continuing on with that sort of IB structure in its totality. Are we looking to also have Weaver also adopt this Cambridge format program?
We're looking for, moving forward, we're looking for a high school, yes. Whether it that be Weaver, we haven't really dug deep into that. That would be also part of the conversation with Dr. Saki's, office to see that.
Yep.
But yes, currently there is nowhere to go for IB, and but this would be something that we would expand to a high school, correct?
Yeah, go ahead, Dr. Saki.
Oh, yeah, and Mr. Wilson, thank you for the question. And I think, part of what we're doing now is the exploration. We wanted to first, when Monica and Paul, when I first got here, that was something that they brought to my attention early, that, how do we address this issue where, we have the IB early years program, but we don't have anything else for students. So I know that early, Paul and Monica, decided to do some research. Unfortunately, they did find Cambridge. So I'll say this is the beginning stages of the conversation. Obviously, in order to get that, K-12 continuum, we'll definitely have to partner with a high school. So we don't know which high school just yet. That's going to be part of the exploration. But that would be, I'll say, the end goal, that we do have a sort of like a K-12 continuum utilizing Cambridge. So just wanted to add that.
Okay. Board Member Tatum has his hand up. I'll come back around.
Is Board Member Tatum's hand up?
Sorry, I just lowered it. But Mr. Wilson, if you want to finish, you can ask your questions.
No, I was at the moment I was really just gonna kind of I appreciate give my appreciation to Ms. Quiones and Mr. Casey for raising this issue. My kids graduated from Global, so they were a part of the IB program, which at the time we really supported, but understood what the difficulties were getting that program off the ground, but then also, keeping teachers who are certified and so forth. So I would also kind of raise, what does I'll leave it there because I have some complaints about IB that has nothing to do with this right here. But yeah, I just want to thank you guys for raising that issue.
Thank you, Board Member. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Before you go, Board Member Tatum, I just wanted to say that, I'm going to echo to a certain degree what Board Member Wilson was saying. I too had a child who, when Global, when the IB program just started, there was this incentive if you attend, the IB program, you get a free ride to college. And so but part of the problem was the training, the certifications, and the people who were, skilled in that, in that area. But we did have, at one point, we did have a high school, and then that ended up, closing. So one of the concerns that I have about this is, is this the next best thing? How long are we going to, keep this Cambridge program? If should we choose to accept this? And also, what about, have we really taken a look at the programs that we already have, and growing those? If anyone wants to answer that, Dr. Saki, perhaps.
Yeah, so thank you for the question, and I'll say, right now, I mean, similar to what I was sharing with Mr. Wilson, I think we are early on in the process in terms of exploration, and when we look at the programs we have in district, I think part of what Paul and Monica were looking for was something that had the same level of academic rigor and, the same international background as IB. And I think in the search, I think that's how we ended up leaning towards the Cambridge model as an option, right? And so, that's when we did send them out to actually go to the symposium and go and learn more about it so that we can have this initial conversation with the board that this is something that we are considering. Just to get some thoughts looking at our programs in district. And not seeing something that had the international lens similar to IB, which is what Global's theme was. So we're trying to stay within that theme, hence looking at the Cambridge model. I don't know if there was a second part to that question, Mr. Ledger.
Yes, that was helpful. Thank you so much. And now, Board Member Tatum. Would you like to ask your question?
Sure. Was wondering if anybody, maybe especially like from the school side, could speak to, I understand from hearing the discussion so far, lots of reasons why this switch makes sense. And I wonder if anyone could just speak to sort of the counter argument of like what we would be losing by making this switch away from IB. Like, are there people who feel really passionate about it that might be opposed? What are those kind of concerns?
I can speak to that. So I was going to share, but I think this answers your question, Board Member Tatum. International Baccalaureate is a very serious program. And when the team brought this to me during our cabinet meeting, I had a million questions about our International Baccalaureate program. Our young people, if we have a true IB program, it should be vertically aligned where young people are graduating high schools with IB diplomas that come with those college credits. And the fact that we've stalled in 5th grade was a major concern for me because I'm like, well, where does it feed to? Which high school has the IB program? Or where's the middle school program for International Baccalaureate? And it does not exist. And if that program's been around here for a long period of time, you gotta let it go because there's been no academic return on investment. Someone please correct me if I'm wrong. Has any student graduated Hartford Public Schools with an IB diploma? I would assume that answer is no. So then the second question would be, how long has IB been in Hartford Public Schools? It's never grown. It's stayed stuck and stagnant. We got to get out of it because it's a waste of time. It's a waste of money. It's a waste of resources. And IB costs a lot of money. And to expand that to the high school level through that secondary, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of training. It takes specialized teachers. And we've not been doing it and don't have the capacity to do it at that level with it being here for so long, which is why I do support the Cambridge pathway, because by the grace of God, while I'm working with the team that we have here, I do believe that we can see a program absolutely through where our young people can move from the Cambridge primary to lower secondary to pre-advanced and ultimately through the Cambridge advanced program where you can graduate with that advanced diploma and it can add value to young people walking out. But we've never produced an IB diploma, which is a huge waste of money. It makes zero sense to have an International Baccalaureate program at the elementary level and it does not go into the secondary level.
Heard. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. Do you have another question, Board Member Tatum, or are you all set?
I guess my all that makes a lot of sense. And my question was like, what might someone say who is attached to the International Baccalaureate or would try to fight for it in our system? I get that there's not a whole lot to defend given that we don't have the full program, but we're just sort of looking for that perspective, if anyone could.
And I'll share on that. If anyone wanted to, I don't think anyone could, and I say this respectfully, I don't think anyone can advocate for it because the purpose of an International Baccalaureate program is to get the IB diploma, which is very similar to passing those AP exams where you got to get the 3 and 4 of those scores. It's the exact same thing, but it's just IB. If we've never tested that, there's no advantage to the International Baccalaureate program other than elementary students having a rigorous program, but it doesn't feed into anything. So it dies in 5th grade, respectfully. So if anyone has a counter argument, and probably no one here does because we're trying to sell Cambridge, but the reality is no one has a high school IB diploma. So I don't know, we're wasting money on IB.
And just to add to what Dr. Townsend was sharing, that was one of my initial questions, to Paul, and then Paul, I don't want to speak for you, but part of what he shared is exactly what Dr. Townsend was saying. For even that staff within the building, there wasn't that initial hold that this was something that they wanted to make sure was maintained, just because they knew that there was no through line for the students, right? So for years they've been utilizing it to the best of their abilities, but they knew that come 5th grade it ended. So just and again, that was one of the questions I asked Paul and Monica, and they were able to explain that to me. I don't know if you want to add anything else about that, Paul, but it fits right along with what Dr. Townsend was sharing.
The only thing I would add is that I did present this to my staff last month, and they were in favor of a change because of exactly what we've been saying. The one thing that they would ask, and this is really presumptuous and also really early, is maybe if we could get like an MOU from the superintendent for like 5 years to let us really do Cambridge. Because one of the problems is that, we start with a theme and then senior leadership turns over, and then that theme isn't as supported as it originally had been intended to be. And so if we move to Cambridge, we'd like to just be able to sort of set up the parameters where that wouldn't occur again. But no, my staff was fully on board. And one of the nice things too, and I'll stop here, is that we're a K-8 and IB was only K-5. And like you said, so 6, 7, 8, we tried to do like an aligned project-based learning, but the Cambridge unifies us. It gives us a clear vision. And I think that that's something we could really use.
And to answer that, Mr. Casey, I think it only makes sense to see things through, because respectfully, not to throw anybody under the bus, for an IB program to perish after the 5th grade for a number of years, that's not a good look. And it's not there's no academic return on investment on anything IB, because you got it in elementary, but it means absolutely nothing in middle school if it doesn't continue. And it truly means nothing if you can't do it in high school. And just for clarity for anyone on this call, when I know International Baccalaureate very well as a high school assistant principal in Washington, D.C., where we had traditional education, honors classes, advanced placement, and International Baccalaureate, where every young person could choose a pathway. You could be a regular student, you could be honor students, you could be an AP student, or you can be an IB student. And IB was very serious. It's a conference you have to go to every year. It's a lot of resources that go into that, and that's not happening. So we got to back out of it at minimum. I guess I could pass it to Board Member Wilson.
Was that an old hand, or you had another? You had a new question?
Sorry, talking on mute. Yeah, no, I did have a new question, but Mr. Casey sort of answered it in terms of ensuring that they have support to do it for 5 years. The previous program, IB program, when it was a K through 12, the Hartford Public Schools backed it, but it was also supported by a scholarship program called Say Yes to Education. You made reference to it earlier. Francois, they also have a network of teachers that they could have brought in and help incentivize to help build out that program. But once they left the program, they didn't have the backing at the at Hartford Public Schools level, especially from a financial piece as well. So that was what I was going to raise. So thank you, Mr. Casey.
Okay, thank you so much. And I'm trying to see if I see any more hands. I don't see any more hands up. So thank you for that presentation. And I believe we are going on to the next agenda item if we have nothing else for this particular one.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Ledger, and thank you, Paul and Monica, for the presentation and for sharing your thoughts on that. Appreciate you being here. So we'll now transition to our secondary department and our new grading process. I'm here with our Director of Secondary, Ms. Tracy Avicoli, and she'll be giving us an update on our grading process so far. If we go to the next slide, please. I always like to start by reviewing our district's mission and vision. Our mission is to provide all our students with the learning and supports they need to succeed in school and life. And our vision is for all students to graduate prepared to transform our world. Next slide, please. So I'm not going to go or to read the entire strategic priorities, but I do want to highlight the whole and healthy students. The work the grading committee has done is intended to support students and ensure that we are assessing what our students know and are able to do. This process improves the academic supports we are able to give our students. Before Ms. Avicoli joins us, I wanted to give a little background of the work that has happened so far. The committee was formed at the beginning of last year and worked through last year and this past summer to address some of the inconsistencies that existed with grading across the district, meaning that there was not a uniform process across the districts from school to school. The committee consisted of teachers, administrators, parents, school counselors, HFT leadership, and students. Currently, we have received feedback from the committee, from staff, some students, and some families. But these are like anecdotal feedbacks. And I know Dr. Townsend had met with a group of students, and they had also provided some feedback. But part of our plan is to use a more formal process, sort of like a survey, to get additional feedback from staff, students, and families. But that will come at a later time. Based on the feedback, we'll make any necessary adjustments or changes that are aligned with the purpose of this new shift in grading. Ms. Avicoli will also give some examples of feedback that was given to the committee and how that feedback was used to make changes or shifts to the grading process. This is the first year for this process, and the focus has been on the high schools, first. Next school year, the goal would be to expand this to the middle school grade levels. Please know that this is a work in progress, and so it's ever evolving. And based on the feedback we receive, we will make the necessary changes and adjustments. At this time, I'll have Ms. Tracy Avicoli give us an update on the grading process so far. Tracy?
Thank you, Dr. Sacchi. Next slide, please. So this slide is illustrating our equitable grading implementation and how it is following a phased approach, as Dr. Sacchi had mentioned, starting this year in our high schools, next year with our middle schools, and then finally our elementary schools. Next slide. Here you see our HPS grading purpose statement. This was created by our district steering committee last year and is the foundation of our work. It says, HPS believes students' growth is fostered through grading that is accurate, free from bias, and motivating. We use two distinct types of reporting to give a complete picture of student progress. One grade on academic achievement and another on habits of work. Grades provide feedback to students and families at various stages throughout the year on mastery of grade level standards and areas for growth. This approach creates a strong partnership where teachers, students, and families work together as a team to help students succeed. Next slide. To ground us, I want to briefly revisit why we undertook this shift. For too long, our traditional grading system mixed academic mastery with behavior, soft skills like punctuality or compliance. While these are important, they shouldn't mask a student's actual understanding of algebra or history, for example. Our new vision focuses on three main pillars. Accuracy, separating behavior from academics so grades are pure data points of mastery. Bias resistance, using mathematical fairness to ensure one bad day doesn't mathematically destroy a student's chance of passing. And third, motivation. moving away from a compliance trap where students are chasing points to a system that is encouraging resilience. This year, we've operationalized this through our core pillars, weighting grades heavily through our summative mastery and replacing the dead-end F with actionable codes. Next slide, please. Again, to operationalize this, we focused on 3 main pillars for this first year. First, category weighting. Gradebooks are now standardized across high schools with 70% of the grade for summative assessments and 30% formative. This prioritizes major evidence of learning over daily practice. Second, we have new academic codes. We replaced the generic F with NEF for no evidence, signifying that a student has not yet submitted enough work to determine a grade, and IPF, or in progress, signifying that a student submitted work but has not yet reached mastery. This gives us actionable data, so we know if a student is missing work or if they are trying but struggling. Lastly, we've implemented completion plans. Students with an NEF or an IPF grade receive a 2 to 4 week plan to complete work and demonstrate mastery to recover their failing grade and close the gap in real time. Next slide, please. This has been a very carefully staged out rollout. Began in the summer of 2025, our task force established protocols and trained all of our leaders created the district grading practice guidance and professional learning for the school year, In August, we held full day training for teachers and leaders on the new gradebook and codes. From September through December, we launched monthly steering committee meetings, which we continue to monitor fidelity of our implementation, review data, and implement professional learning across our district. And lastly, in January, we're conducting our mid-year review to analyze failure rates and adjust any supports we need for semester 2. Next slide. Here is a look at our quarter 1 data. We processed over 32,000 course grades in grades 9 through 12. Approximately 56.2% of grades at the end of quarter 1 were A or B grades. Approximately 14% of grades at the end of quarter 1 were failing grades. Critically, of those failing grades, 9% were in progress and 5% were no evidence. This tells us that students are engaged and attempting the work. They just need more instructional support to reach mastery. Also noting at the bottom of that slide, just for a small comparison, at the end of school year 24-25, the end of last school year, the total number of failing grades amounted in about 17% at the end of the school year. So at 14% at the end of quarter 1, we are below that failing mark. Next slide. Now looking specifically at our completion plans and also for our vulnerable populations. We saw 13.9% improvement for all students placed on completion plans across all grades in quarter 1. So you'll see that 625 students out of all of our 9 through 12th grade students had an increase in their grade from a failing grade to a passing grade at the end of their completion plan window for quarter 1. Indicating that the completion plan process is benefiting over 600 students at the end of quarter 1. When we disaggregated for our multilingual learners, we showed a 14.2% improvement rate for multilingual learners and a 13.5% improvement rate for students with disabilities. While these numbers show promise, still grade 9 remains our highest area of need, where we see the in-progress designation is helping us identify struggling 9th graders earlier than before. Next slide, please. Next slide, Christina. Thank you so much. This is just an overview of those mid-year data trends. So the impact of our completion plans is that the November data showed a reduction in failures, suggesting that the completion plans are helping our students recover. Our grading distribution, our data is revealing that there are more IPF grades than NEF no evidence grades, indicating that students are attempting work but still growing towards mastery. And lastly, grade level trend data. At the end of November, grade 9 is still our highest volume of at-risk grades, highlighting this critical transition year and the need for support. And lastly, our students with disabilities showing a 13.5% showing improvement on grades is also a point to highlight. Next slide, please. We listened to our students. They perceived this new system. We had mixed reviews. And again, as Dr. Saki had mentioned, this was taken from a very small sample, and we look forward to having a broader sample size later in the school year. They perceive the new system as fairer. However, they are responding well to the not yet mindset of IPF grades. However, they've definitely shared that the inconsistency in retake policies between teachers is a pain point. They want more clear and consistent rules on when and how they can retake their assignments or assessments, and they would like increased feedback from their teachers. Next slide, please. We also have been hearing from our teachers. They're very candid. Some successes are that the conversation has now shifted from points grabbing, right, to mastery. Teachers report having a clearer separation of behavior over academics, and they're discussing mastery and evidence rather just point accumulation. Some challenges are also clear. The workload is real for our teachers. Teachers feel like they are constantly grading retakes. One teacher noted, the more I put in the gradebook, the more I need to offer redos. They also struggle sometimes with 8 formative pieces of evidence in 1 quarter in courses that meet less frequently. We're responding to this teacher feedback immediately. For example, our February 13th District Professional Learning Day is focused on quality over quantity. We're helping teachers design better assessments and select formative pieces that they don't feel need to assign, so they don't feel they need to assign busy work just to hit the 8 formative number. We're also emphasizing that retakes are conditional. Students must also complete corrective action and relearn the material with support from teachers before they can retake an assignment. This shifts the workload again and responsibility back to our students and our teachers to prepare them for this work. Next slide. Looking ahead as we move into semester 2 and next year, we look forward. Right now we are finalizing semester 1 and the completion plan process. On February 13th, as stated before, we are going to deliver critical professional learning, addressing workload and assignment quality. Into the spring, we will continue monitoring grade 9 failure rates and continuing to support teachers and increasing communication with students and families. And lastly, at the end of the year, we will review all of our data to determine any adjustments for year 2. Lastly, our middle school implementation begins next year, so we will be getting ready for that in the spring. Next slide. And lastly, this work is a culture shift, so we're committed to seeing it through. I'm happy to answer any questions that the committee has regarding our progress, our data, and our next steps. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that presentation, and let me see if we have any hands up. Board Chair Brody, you have the floor.
Thank you for the presentation. I had the pleasure of engaging all of our high schools was represented at a summit at Central recently, and they had quite the bit to say about this.
Yes.
So the two sections is formative and what's the other?
Summative.
Summative. So we had 5 or 6 tables of young people. I believe we had 5 full tables. Every table said the exact same thing. So the points that they were saying is it's too much weighted in one of those categories. They all provided dissatisfaction in it.
Yeah.
They also express frustration in if one grade isn't fixed or put in, it looks their grade is sitting in Power School, not favorable, but they know they've just waiting for that grade. So it was some anxiety expressed around that part. They appreciated the time for makeup.
Yeah.
But it makes them a little lax.
Yes.
For the length of time that they have.
Mm-hmm.
They appreciated it though, but they was like, it does make us a little bit lazy. But the thing that was like bells and whistles bring attention to was definitely how Woodlands informative versus summative. And they thought it was which one is weighted higher or
The
more?
summative. Yeah, the summative is weighted higher, Ms. Brody, you're right.
They said it is not, they complained about it, but they overall they appreciate it. But that category, they said that is not, they didn't believe it to be fair, and it was a barrier to them. One last point I did want to mention too is that I think they seem to be carrying like the stress like of the teachers too.
Yeah.
So I think the more we could pass that on like, to students, because when they were explaining something to me, it wasn't something that necessarily they were frustrated about, but what their teachers is saying they're stressed out about.
Yeah.
And kind of were so worried about that too. Sometimes I had to say, okay, I'm asking about you and what issues you're having. So I think a little bit of the frustration is showing outwardly, and they're taking on that stress too.
Yeah.
But definitely the buckets that it fall in, they were saying, and they knew because they knew formative, they knew summative, they knew what goes in there, what doesn't. And they knew they were really informed about the process.
Yep.
And what they graded on. It was very, very impressed, and they could have a very interesting conversation with you about that. It was impressive. So that if I had to give one bit of feedback is how what falls formative or summative.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Brody. We definitely were chatting with the same group of students, and that was the Superintendent's Advisory Council. They were extremely just fantastic about expressing just their concerns, their dislikes, and their likes. And I agree. I heard the same thing, that the summative piece is very difficult, and it is. It's a big shift, and essentially when the grading for equity is that the daily practice should lead to, which is the formative part, should really lead to increase in the summative category as well. However, we know that we have work to do. And the learning really comes also with us and from our teachers to think about what is a summative assessment and how can we create different types of summative assessments so that our students can demonstrate mastery in a variety of different ways. I remember one student that was in Dr. Townsel's advisory council that said, I'm not a good test taker, but I'm good at performance-based activities and projects. So part of this is, again, creating a new way of thinking for also our students, for our teachers, as well as our students. But I hear that. That's definitely an area of growth for us. And I also heard you bringing our students along with us too.
So now that you say that, it makes sense. Maybe it wasn't that it was too heavy, it's what was in there. And I can speak personally, my personal experience with my child is that, like, she's like, we're doing 90 minutes of equations, up out of our seats, very interactive, and that's not really heavily counted at, or if it's just the exit ticket that gets the, so in 47 minutes I have to get credit for my day. She has not been happy with that, because she's like, I did 90 minutes of work, I did this and that and all these examples and group work, and then it's summed up in the last 5-7 minutes.
Right.
So if we could really push into what is, how we're evaluating and what though, I think that's where it may live, and not just that we're heavier on formative or summative, maybe what is in that section.
Yeah.
And I do want to say my have worked with the school, and they have been very helpful. I appreciate the district in hearing, you know, because it's new. So everyone has been very helpful in listening and trying to offer advice, just trying to get to a good place that it benefits students and staff the best. But we're I can't think of the quote that Dr. Townsend said at the board this week, but I feel like we're in that stage in this process with the grading, but looking forward to doing better and getting better with this.
Storming, forming, norming, performing. I'll write it down.
Thank you, Dr. Townsend. Thank you, Ms. Brody. I really believe that we're 1% better, which is also something that Dr. Tonsel says, in consistency. We are not going to be 100% better after, you know, one semester of implementation, but we're 1% better. We're getting a little bit better every year, every month, every week. And so that's progress too. So thank you, Ms. Brody, for your words as well.
And I just wanted to add, I know Board Member Tatum's hand was up, but just wanted to add, you know, Ms. Brody, you know, with any change, obviously, with any change and with any shift, there are going to be some level of growing pains, and I think, and some level of learning, and I think that's part of what we're experiencing now. But I think that the feedback is so important, and so that's why, you know, like I was saying, we are going to be surveying our high schoolers, our staff, you know, families, just to get, you know, broader feedback, because, you know, like Tracy gave the example, as we get the feedback and as we hear from folks, we are in real time trying to make shifts that, you know, that makes sense for staff and that makes sense for students. So as we get feedback, we will continue to make adjustments. You know, I always say that it's a living document. And, you know, so right now we have summative at 70 and formative at 30. Based on feedback, some of that might shift as well, right? So, you know, as we get feedback and as we go through the year, we learn more and we make adjustments based on what we hear. So thank you for that question. Board Member Tatum.
Yeah, thank you. I've spoken about my support for this in the past and still very much appreciate the direction that we're trying to head in with the grading practices, and always want to lift up just how like significant a cultural shift it is for everybody, for teachers. I would say teachers and families, maybe primarily. Students are remarkably adaptable to different kinds of grading systems. You know, for generations, each teacher has had their own way of grading, and students adapt kind of naturally to whatever the teacher in front of them is doing in terms of grading. so as you know, as the comments that Ms. Brody made about the panel or the tables that she was at, like students really get it quick. And I'm glad that we're shifting toward, from the presentation, the things that I was most glad to hear about was how, I think it was something that staff said about how it's really shifting the conversation from getting the points that you need to like, have you actually learned the material? So that feels very encouraging. And I think I would ask, not that this isn't happening, but just a reminder to everybody to, as we have some of these like feedbacks and revisions about some of the technical details of it, to really stay focused on the why and the reasons for making these changes. And yes, there are going to be some, unexpected challenges that come up as we're sort of migrating and living in these two worlds of traditional grading systems and a more standards-based kind of approach. Right. But to navigate that, really trying to focus on what it is that we're trying to do with it, which is, support and measure what students know and are able to do, and be able to have the grade book reflect as best we can the values that we place on our education and what it means to be educated in a very deep sense. So definitely keep on the work. There's so many conversations to have, and I'd be always glad to help bridge some of those conversations, because it can get very technical very quickly, and that's not always, the for professional teacher speak is not always the most like accessible to everybody. So I applaud the work. Please keep it up. Please keep pursuing that ultimate goal.
Thank you, Board Member Tatum. Appreciate that very much.
And and thank you for that, Board Member Tatum. And just to add, and Tracy, kudos to you and the grading committee, because like Board Member Tatum was sharing, it's a mindset shift, right? If we've been doing something a certain way for years and now having to shift into another way of looking at things, I think. But the way you all have laid out the process and the timelines and taking the feedback and responding in real time to the feedback, I think has been part of what's allowing this to move as positively as it's currently moving. So kudos to you and the grading committee for the work.
Thank you very much for your support as well. Any other questions?
Well, I have, I just wanted to echo that, what Board Member Tatum and Board Chair Brody was saying with regards to the feedback. It's important that we are getting feedback. I'm glad that we're getting feedback from the students, from the teachers, from everyone, so that it is, it continues to be a living document. But ultimately, we want our young people to learn. We want them to retain the information, and we want the learning to be meaningful. So it's nice to see that, that there is a shift, that there, because children, there's a saying that, children adapt, adults adjust, so they are resilient. But once again, it has to be meaningful. And I believe that this is giving them an opportunity to take ownership of their learning and how the grading process, happens. So thank you again for the work that you're doing, and that you continue to do.
Great. Thank you so much for your support.
And I believe that should be, we don't have another agenda item, do we?
No, we do not.
Okay, great. So I would like to thank everyone for their presentations. Thank everyone for attending our Teaching and Learning Committee meeting, and have a wonderful evening. Stay warm.